Okay, welcome back. Right now I'm going to be talking about basically Project 1, which is your first real game project. There's going to be more notes about and exact project descriptions about this released on Friday of this week, but for now I just wanted to give you a heads up so you start thinking about it. So here's some project notes that you can see me real time typing up. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a shoot 'em up. To switch over to LibreOffice there. So anyway, Project 1 notes, app LOOC. Obviously this is going to be in much better format soon, but we're going to be basically be creating a shoot 'em up. So that's shmup, as some people call it. As you can see from here, shmups is sort of the standard thing to call shoot 'em ups. So we're going to be creating a shoot 'em up, and this shoot 'em up is going to basically be derivative. So you can use the shooter project as a starting point, but there's a wealth of directions you can go from there. I mean, there's tons of different things you can do in a shoot 'em up, and that's sort of what we're going to be capturing here is how do we design a game with the basic tools that you guys have used and be able to actually, follow through on it. The first thing you should do is, if you haven't already, well, you probably have, but inside of Unit 4, we've got a high concept primer and a high concept document template. I'll be including these in the project documentation as well, so that you can have those again and download them. You should also take note of the previous video I showed you where we talked about the requirements of a technical design doc, because you're going to have to write a technical design doc for this one as well. So I'll be posting that online. So I'm going to start typing up some requirements here. TDD, so we're going to have a GDD, which I kind of started going through already, but I've definitely gone through the high concept document. The GDD is going to be a full game design document. The TDD is going to be a full design or a full technical design document as well. And that's sort of just the beginning. And then of course you're going to need your blueprint for your class, for your game design, and then of course you're going to need your implementation, which comes down to exactly what we need to do for a shoot 'em up. If you start taking a look at some of these, I'm going to post all of these YouTube things as references. I've been looking around at various shoot 'em ups. Here's one for Astro Warrior, for example. This was a Sega Master System classic. Here's one for Raiden DX, which was on the PlayStation. Here's one for Super R-Type, which was on the SNES. There's a whole bunch of them. Here's one for Gradius 5, which is showing you stage 5. Konami back in the day had a ton of different shoot 'em ups, and they kind of try reviving this every once in a while. And this was a fairly famous attempt at one. This was a little more modern. So I'm going to include all these links so you can kind of start getting inundated with shoot 'em ups. But if we take a look at some of these, this one is a little bit complex. You don't have to go this crazy, obviously, but this is sort of the state of the art for, or was the state of the art for the shoot 'em ups. But basically here, you see a boss coming in, a bunch of different massive planets that the character is blowing up. All of which have particle effects coming off of them. So I'm already seeing tons of directions we could go for enhancements to our shoot 'em up, and you should probably be able to see the same thing as you watch these with me. There's also different types of effects that he can shoot out of his ship other than just the single bullet. Another one might be Raiden to take a look at on the PlayStation. So this is going in a slightly different view, the top-down view. Got some shadowing on there, that's kind of cool. But yet it's in 2D, so you might wonder how they did that. They probably ended up doing that with an extra object that just cast off what looks like a shadow, but it's probably just a sprite image. And here we've got a sort of, I guess you could almost consider those mini bosses, and note how they shoot them differently. And there's a smart bomb that he's got, and you can tell in Raiden, your guns get upgraded over time. That's kind of a common theme as well. So I'm going to start taking some notes on things that I'm seeing here, and that's what I would encourage you to do as well. So far I'm seeing guns upgrading over time, smart bombs. I'm seeing mini bosses and bosses. Planets that you can fight. That's what we saw in the previous example. In this Gradius example, we saw these giant planet things that you're actually fighting. So I mean, there's sort of sky's the limit as far as how crazy you can get. Here's a boss that has certain weaknesses. So the bosses we might want to note that these have weaknesses and patterns. Also, one thing I noticed in Gradius was laser weapons, charged weapons. One thing I noticed in the last time that I was with you guys was if you look at R-type, like we did before, so looking at R-type here, well, that's kind of interesting. So intro sequences we might want to list. Boosts. So that's a charged weapon he was just using there, so that's kind of cool. AI patterns. Just picked a power up. So I'm just kind of making a list of various things that I see. He's got charge weapons, maybe with a charge meter. He's got the shield item here, which is interesting for R-type. That's basically you have this front shield that, so as you can see, there are charges, multiple guns coming out of, or multiple types of guns that that the R-type character gets as he kind of goes forward here. So that would be something else that we could play around with. It looks like there's also well, I already listed out smart bombs, but there's other types of bombs as well. So we want to list the shield. The shield kind of flies out, as you can see here. It kind of flies out for a certain period of time. You launch it, and then it does its own AI. So that's sort of the basic evaluation of a whole bunch of different add-ons that various shoot-'em-ups have undergone. So what I want you guys to do is your assignment, and again, I'll be creating a full assignment document out of this, but this is something just to get you thinking. You're going to be needing to do a high concept doc, a GDD, a TDD, a blueprint, and the implementation. Inside of the implementation, you're going to be required to do certain things. For one thing, you will be required to have mini bosses and bosses. And that's one of the reasons we're going over AI in the coming weeks. But your AI for now can be very basic and just, in fact, I think what I'd like to say is or bosses. So you're going to have to either include some kind of a mini boss or a boss, so that could either just be basically a really big enemy or some kind of boss. Multiple weapon types. You're going to want some kind of an intro sequence. And you're going to want some kind of power-ups. I'm not going to require you to have a charging system, although that would be a potential other thing you could add. These will be optional, sort of extra credit type items, charging system, both bosses and mini bosses. Plants that have collision. Let's see the Gradius example. Smart bombs. Shield AI. So that's basically it. You'll have to make sure that you have at least mini bosses or bosses, multiple weapon types, some sort of an intro sequence and power-ups. I'm also going to want you to have a story of some sort. It doesn't have to be very complex. It can be just basically, you're protecting the planet from the evil Zentradi or something. I don't know. Here I'm referencing Robotech, of course, but just something very basic, and you might even want to print that out at the beginning. So that's basically it for the Project 1 notes, and you can use your shooter project as a starting point. I will be refining this into a full-fledged document to have out no later than Friday, but in the meantime, this should be enough for you to get started. You've already got a feel for how the shooter works, and next week we're going to be going into much greater detail with the shooter, and we're going to finish that up. The thing to keep in mind is that there's not that much time until the game project is due. We're basically introducing it this week. It's week 5. Week 6 we basically finish up the shooter, and then at the end of week 7 game project 1 is due. So you've basically got 1, 2, about 3 weeks only, and then that game project, actually a little less than 3 weeks, because that game project is due on the 16th, which is a Wednesday. So I will get the requirements out to you as soon as I can, but in the meantime you should definitely get started, because you've only got a couple weeks. So that is that. I will see you next time. Stay tuned for some videos on inheritance.